We have seen so much red, so much red last week, the week before. Let's see if things can turn around, although this news from Japan is not making it easy. And we have a big, shocking news out of Japan. The Bank of America, no, not Bank of America, Bank of Japan decides to raise their 10-year yield percentage, which means they also effectively raised their interest. So this is a surprise, and many people don't know what this means. Some people think this is going to be very, very, very bad, but some people think it's going to be good, especially for crypto. What everyone is talking about this morning is this: Bank of America shocks. I keep saying Bank of America. I'm sorry. Bank of Japan shocks global markets with bond yield shift. Okay, so the Bank of Japan has been basically the only central bank out there that has not raised its interest rates at all, or their effective borrow rate, right? Their bank rate, their equivalency of the fund rate. They have not moved up at all, which is why the Japanese yen has been free falling, basically, because they want to have this they want to have this like permanent quantitative easing, which they set out like 6 years ago. I don't know when exactly they decided to do that, but it was approximately 5-6 years ago. They decided, hey, we're just going to have easing and easing and easing. So that's why even though the last 2 years with inflation going sky high, Bank of Japan still said, nah, it's okay. We'll leave rates basically at zero. You could borrow basically as much as you want at 0%, right? And you could buy our bonds at basically 0%. Everything was near 0%. And, you know, a lot of people knew this was unsustainable, especially now, right? Especially when their currency is devaluing so greatly versus other currencies like the USD. You know, the DXY, the second biggest comparison is to the Japanese yen. But anyways, the Bank of Japan decided, okay, enough is enough. So they effectively moved their rate about 25 basis points higher. Okay, not a big jump. But it's surprising because everyone thought they were going to stick with their plan and leave it at zero basically for an indefinite amount of time, right? But they decided, no, that's going to end. So they decided to move the rates up to about 50 basis points overall. This affects their bond yields and also their borrowing rate and everything else that I've been talking about in the U.S., what Powell has been doing, right, with the rate hikes, right? That's what seems like is about to happen, or started, I should say, started with Bank of Japan. So now why a lot of people are fearful about this is we know what rate hikes have done in the U.S. We know what rate hikes have done pretty much around the world, right? The purpose of it is to slow down the economy, to slow down the buying, right? To make it so that companies borrow less. And the plan is to decrease inflation due to lowering demand, right? Now, people are concerned that if Japan, well, Bank of Japan does this, it's going to stifle or is going to stop the growth of Japanese companies, which up until this point was still borrowing money left and right, basically for free at 0%, right? That is going to stop now. It's going to be harder for them to borrow because they have to pay interest or higher interest, right? So it's a trickle effect. Even though they're still at like 50 basis points, which is 0.5%, we're really off where we are versus in the U.S. we're like 4.25%. So it's a big difference, right? But people are thinking that they will continue to raise rates. So businesses are going to still tighten up, and that means the economy of Japan may start going down, which it wasn't that great to begin with, but it may get worse. This is why there's a lot of people that's very fearful about this, and I guess we'll have to keep our attention on this situation and see what happens. Okay, so there are a lot of people that's actually freaking out over this, even though most of us in the U.S. and Europe, we may not be paying attention, but a lot of people are really fearing what this may do to not only Japan, but also other Asian countries that like to buy bonds from Japan, right? It may be upset by this move. We will see. We will see. However, this has helped Bitcoin. You know, Bitcoin came up a little bit, right? Starting from last night to today. Not the biggest jump, but Bitcoin's at 16.8, about 2%. So what this means is people are putting money into Bitcoin. So maybe a lot of people in Japan not liking what they're seeing, they decide to buy some Bitcoin, right? Maybe. For DXY went down slightly. The Japanese yen got a little bit stronger versus the dollar, right? But it didn't really move in a significant way. We still need to see DXY go down a lot more. The Japanese yen needs to go up a lot more to have an effect here. But global markets, somewhat shaky about this news. But Bitcoin jumps, so we'll take that. Now, Bitcoin jumping may have nothing to do with what's going on with Bank of Japan, but maybe there is. But there's still a lot of stuff going on with Bitcoin. A lot of people don't pay attention to dApps on top of Bitcoin. So I came across a couple interesting things. For example, the Lightning Network now has opened up these new addresses that are more human readable. So it's not like a long digit you have to remember. And the purpose of this is to crowdfund so that people could send you donations or funding for something that you may be working on, right? And it's just much easier to do. And this is across the Lightning Network, so it's instant and basically feeless, right? So there's a lot of innovations going on. And someone posted this in terms of what's happening on the Lightning Network. All the wallets that are supporting Lightning Network already, some of the on-ramp, off-ramps, and there's others that's in here. I mean, there's so many that I've never even heard of before, but it does show that Lightning Network, the ecosystem, the dApps are growing by a lot, quite a lot, in fact. So something that I normally don't show, in case you don't know what the Lightning Network is, the layer 2 on top of Bitcoin that can enable basically feeless and instantaneous transactions, and there's other stuff that's on top of it too. Like, for example, there's a couple of gaming projects on top of the Lightning Network, right? Interesting stuff. What else is going on? Well, here's an interesting metric for Bitcoin. The 2-year moving price, and then 2-year moving price times 5. And basically, if you look at it, it creates a nice channel. And whenever Bitcoin is below the 2-year moving average, well, that usually indicates a reversal. And whenever it's above the 2-year moving average times 5, it's a reversal indicator too, to the downside, right? And again, where we are is very similar to the bottom of 2018, to the bottom of 2015, and even to the bottom of 2011, right? Another one of those pesky charts that is showing, it's a great time to be DCing right now. Great time to be DCing. And then there's other things like this showing the balance of Bitcoin on exchanges continues to tank like a rock. It's all good stuff right now. And this is measuring the relative unrealized loss, 7D DMA, 7-day moving average. And again, like previous bottoms, like 2015, 2018, right? It's very, very high. And again, when you have very high amount of unrealized loss, that usually means it's a great time to be DCing. It's never a bad time to be DCing, really. Not at these levels, but there you go. So maybe Bitcoin is moving up because of all these reasons, or because of Santa rallies around the corner. We don't know. We don't know, but maybe. And then the last few things this morning, BlockFi. This was reported last night already, but BlockFi is filing motion to allow wallet users, people that were just storing their crypto, not for anything else, to withdraw. So hopefully this gets approved so that some people will be able to take some of their crypto out, right? Hopefully this does get approved. It's very different than the other lending companies, which basically have, up until this point, didn't allow any withdrawals, and they're in bankruptcy hearing. Voyager has been bought out by Binance.us, so we'll see when we can get our money out of Voyager. But Celsius, still unknown. BlockFi, unknown at this point, but maybe they'll be rescued too. Then Genesis and Gemini Earn, right? Unknown at this point too. Let's see. Coinbase, Brian Armstrong is saying that centralized actors should be regulated, but don't stop. But stop there, and leave DeFi alone. That's what he says. Well, but that's wishful thinking. The regulators, if they're going to attack centralized actors, they're going to attack everyone, unfortunately. And FTX has made things worse, right? And they're going to be looking at everything. So that's kind of wishful thinking. But Brian Armstrong was plugging his stablecoin hard, which is USDC. Coinbase and Circle combined and created USDC, but he's trying to make sure that comes out on top and maybe overthrow Tether in the near future. And then lastly, there's a rift between Ripple CTO and Vitalik. David Schwartz, not a fan of Vitalik saying that XRP is centralized. So David Schwartz is very angry that Vitalik either doesn't understand or pretends to not understand that Ripple and XRP are two different things. Okay? Now, Vitalik doesn't like Ripple or XRP because, first of all, he says XRP is very centralized. And second of all, Brad Garlinghouse in the past have attacked Ethereum and Bitcoin, saying that both are China controlled, so you can't trust them and you got to trust XRP instead. Well, that is far from the truth. And that is why Vitalik is so angry at Ripple. And the reason why he says XRP is centralized because Ripple still owns more than more than 50% of the overall supply. So if you have one company that owns more than 50% of the supply of the tokens, then that doesn't make it very decentralized, does it? So that's Vitalik's argument, but David, he doesn't have a rebuttal for that.